Happy Wednesday, July 6th, Kimberly and Phil. Thank you both for joining me. How are you today?
Awesome.
Very good. How are you? I see you're sitting at a used car dealership today, Zach. What are you going to buy?
All
Oh
right,
boy.
we are gonna buy it all, evidently, or we're at least gonna try. There was a incredible community post back on jalopnik.com seeking out the worst car dealership stories from the Jalopnik community. We reference Jalopnik all the time here on the YA channel. They featured us from time to time. It's really, really great.
Yeah.
Hundreds of comments were posted on this article outlining some of the worst stories folks have ever had at the car dealership. We don't have Pops today. He had a flat tire yesterday, and then the mini dealership didn't have his tire. And anyway, he's busy at the dealership getting things taken
Yeah.
care of. But Kimberly, Phil, I thought we'd spend some time going over some of the horror stories from the dealership, both buying cars, servicing cars, the whole 9 yards. Also, we've got the updated data from Black Book for the used car market and some other data from Cox Automotive, painting a bit of a picture of the slowdown starting to happen. We'll run through that, maybe the chat. Next thing you know, it'll be half an hour from now. Does that sound good?
Sounds
Awesome.
good. It always
Kimberly,
flies by.
it
Sorry.
does. I want to kick it off to you first. Which story stood out to you the most from this Jalopnik article? I'll pull it up over on my screen and I'll just share with everyone. It was just what's your worst car dealership experience?
There's one story that really, I got to say all of them really jump out at me. But there's one by a guy named Old Man McKenna that got into a physical altercation with salespeople, ended up, I don't know, driving his vehicle over a curb, and all because the salespeople, yeah, you got it. The
You want me
salespeople
to read
wouldn't
it?
move. Go for it. It's a long one, though. I don't know if you want to read the whole thing, but yeah.
We'll do story number one because Old Man McKenna has quite a few. Where to start? Why not at a local Ford store where 100% of my quote worst dealer stories take place? The one below is the most egregious of the 4 or 5, but the fact that I have 4 or 5 out of thousands of dealership interactions and dozens of cars purchased over 25 years, and all of them are at a Ford store, says something. We're not saying I think this is Old Man McKenna saying it. Story number one.
That's right.
Ford store held my license hostage after a test drive and physically blocked my wife and I from leaving first the building, then the lot. Condensed, they tried to guilt us into buying a car because we quote wasted their time test driving. Hard sell commenced. 2 more sales guys showed up and blocked the building exit and refused to move. So I got physical with them. One whom fell into a plant potter. I think that's like a planter, is what Old Man McKenna is trying to say.
Planter.
A
Yeah.
planter, thank you. Then I called the cops and drove over a sidewalk and a lawn to get away from the sales manager who was physically blocking me from backing out of my spot, still trying to sell us a Ford Escape. I understand now because it's a Ford Escape. Gotta get them off the lot. Promising not to, quote, call the police if we just bought a car from them.
What?
This is mind-boggling. Have you ever seen anything like this, Kimberly?
I have never seen anything like this. I have never seen anything like this. I don't even know what to say to this. Whenever you have to get into I have no words. What do you say, Phil?
I there should be no reason for any of it, right? I mean, there's some people that are getting upset about the way things are, but you know what? We don't need to throw anybody into a potter. I mean, it's not going to bode very well, over the whole situation. But no, man, we don't need to be doing this.
That was pretty shocking to me, Zach. I have to
Yeah.
say that was a shocking one.
The thing is, not all of these are buying a car related. I found this one to be pretty fascinating. If we're counting dealers servicing in bad dealership experiences, I have one that might be hard to beat. I brought my Mustang into a Ford dealership. Again, Ford, we're not, we'll see. We'll see if there are others. In
Yeah.
Brooklyn for an oil change and a tire replacement. Was told I could pick it up the next morning. Except at the end of the day, I dropped it off. The dealership went into bankruptcy.
Bad timing. Bad timing.
The service center lot was chained up and bolted, and no employees went back. And so my car sat there on the lot with no way of me getting it for 2 weeks. The phone for the dealership and the service center were disconnected. I tried calling Ford corporate, and they basically just shrugged and said there was nothing they could do. I called the police, and they said I'd have to file a petition with the bankruptcy court to get access to the lot. Eventually, I walked past the service lot and saw that some people were in the service building taking out files. And so I just walked into the building, went behind the counter where they hung all the customers' keys, grabbed my keys, and took my car and drove off. Probably could have taken any car I wanted.
Oh my.
I mean, I would have done that. I'm like, you're not going to keep my car.
I would have done that too. I probably would have called the police. I don't know. Could the police?
He did call the police.
But I don't know what to say about that one either. I would have done the
A
same
lot of
thing.
these are shocking.
Climbed over there, grabbed the keys. He said he could have taken any of those keys, which he could have, but then he would be in big trouble. But
I mean, the fact that you would have to be told to go to court to try to get your car out, I'm like, nope, I'm not doing that. If I have to climb over the fence, I'm going to get my car.
now, see, I don't know if I buy that. Like, I just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Chained up and bolted, Kimberly. Chained up and bolted. Also, this is Brooklyn. I mean, let's just be very real. This is Brooklyn. I'm not
True.
too surprised that this one came out of Brooklyn. Now,
True.
let's look at, just for a second here, we've got Hyundai and Kia dealerships. They obviously have been notorious for the challenges.
I was just looking at this one.
Are putting into places. My wife and I walked into our local Kia dealership about 4 years ago to look at a used Kia Sorento. They had it listed for $17,790. My wife's car was on the last legs and needed to replace it. We drove the car and she liked it, so we started talking numbers. Their version of, quote, numbers is greatly different from our version of numbers. This is a story that is all too common. I asked them for an itemized quote to see what they were listing the car for. That's the perfect thing to ask for. They proceeded to pull out a piece of printer paper and write the quote on the back of it. I said I needed to see one with the selling price of the car, tax, title, license, and any other fees they were quoting. We love to see it. They tactfully ignored that request and started talking to my wife. Their back of the paper quote was $419 a month for 75 months, and that was with $3,000 for the trade-in. I said, quote, you're quoting us almost $32,000 for a car that's listed for $18,000 on your site without an itemized quote that comes out to be about 27% interest. They didn't bat an eye and said, well, quote, sometimes the credit with credit like hers, you have to take what you can get.
Wow.
Then they said they would do us a favor and lowered the price to $399 for 75 months. We ignored further numbers and their desperate sales tactics. We then went to CarMax, traded in her car for $400 and purchased an almost identical Kia Sorento for $325 for 60 months. Perfect example of how confusing this whole process can be. And if you aren't comfortable pushing back, you end up getting into a payment that you're happy with, but you don't even understand what you're doing. Ugh, scary.
Exactly.
No, right. I mean, this comes into play. Like, you know, we harp on the out the door, right? It's like, get your itemized out the door so you can see what you're actually purchasing and what you're financing. I'm sure there were probably other fees in there and that wasn't pure 27% interest, but and the fact that he had to reply to that, you know, with like, oh, because of credit like hers, like, oh my gosh, you know, it's like things like this that puts a stigma on dealers that it just makes them look bad all over because of stuff like this.
100%.
What about, Kimberly?
100%.
We talked just the other day about the FTC's proposed rules, and one of the pieces was the actual price, having the actual price, and also not necessarily taking different prices if you're paying cash or if you're financing. This is an example in that story 4 years ago. That would have been super helpful. Not only should you see the buyer's guide, but you should just see what the out-the-door price is.
Yeah, 100%. This is such a great thing that Jalopnik did here, because you've got these stories on all parts of the spectrum. You've got these horror stories, like the couple that we've just touched on. You actually do have a couple of people saying, hey, I never really had that much of a problem when I went to the dealership. And then you've got ones right down the middle. And I'm so thankful that we at YAA teach people all of these things, what to look for, what to ask for, what to say whenever you're in certain situations that have been highlighted here in these comments.
Susanna's got a great point, which is, can the BBB or any other governing body do anything in these cases. BBB can't do too terribly much except
No,
for maybe put out a memo, and we all
not
know
the
about
BBB.
memos at this point. The FTC
Yeah.
can do some things. The CFPB can't really do anything.
No.
FTC is probably your best bet. Your state's attorney general is probably your best bet. Hiring a lawyer, unfortunately, is probably a bit of your best bet.
It
We even
is.
talked about it a bit yesterday on the show, Kimberly. Frazier, he commented, he said, hey, the dealership ran my credit and they didn't ask me. They didn't get my approval for that. Unfortunately, things like that happen all too frequently. That you can't do that. That's not appropriate. You have to sign off, for something like
You
that
do.
to
You
happen.
have to give written consent, and on that written consent, you physically have to put your social security number in. And then, yeah, the dealership can take it and run with it. So again, be very careful with what you're signing.
Yeah,
All right.
even over the phone, like don't, if the dealership wants that information,
Mm-mm.
don't give it to them until you're signing a credit app that will allow them legally to pull your credit.
Yeah.
Igor reminding us, I heard of dealerships who let customers sign blank contracts and then load them with everything and submitting them to the banks. There was actually a story in automotive news last year. I think it was Big Red Kia or something like that in Oklahoma. That's exactly what they got caught doing is customers were putting over, I forget what it was, as collateral on loans, and then also signing blank contracts that they were then just putting on whatever they
I
could
think
to,
I
do you
remember
remember?
that, Zach, because it
Let's
was
see.
it was a weird name, like Big Red, like the Big Red gum. It's what it reminded me of. But yeah, I do think I remember that from last year. People, don't ever sign a blank anything. I don't care
There
what it
we
is.
go.
Don't sign a
Oh,
blank anything.
Mm-mm.
and I remember why this was so memorable. I mean, it's terrible that I'm about to say this, but the names of those that were involved make it fairly memorable. Federal jury convicts Norman car dealership executives of wire fraud, conspiracy, forgery, and identity theft. On November 19th of 2021, a federal judge convicted Bobby Chris Mays, 49, Charles Gooch, 63, and Courtney Wells,
Yeah.
36, on multiple counts of wire fraud, conspiracy, and issuing forged securities and aggravated identity theft. This speaks to Igor's last point. They were doing, let's see here, indictment,
It's Big Red Kia.
Yep. The indictment further alleged that the defendants made materially false statements and omissions to lenders about the type, source, and amount of borrowers' down payments or vehicle trade-ins, and bribed at least one loan officer. I mean, these are the things that unfortunately can happen. They used advertisements to target potential customers with poor credit, and then they would fraudulently induce lenders to approve loans for customers by documenting that the customers provided cash down payments or trade-in values that were untrue. So it's good that Jalopnik is doing this article, especially at the time when the FTC is contemplating these rules. But these types of things sadly happen, and these
They
could
do.
be horror stories that people experience that end up having
Yeah.
material impacts on their lives.
Exactly. If you ever see a sign at the dealership that says we'll take any credit, bad credit, we'll take it. Buyer beware. That's what I say. Buyer beware, because there are rules, regulations, and guidelines, and not every credit can truly be bought by a bank.
Right.
Let's look at one more here from the Jalopnik article. So back before I worked here, my dealership of choice was a small Chevy dealer about 20 minutes up the road. I had probably bought 5 vehicles off these folks and really never had any issues until I finally got a good union gig at a steel mill, and it was my time to buy our first, quote, nice vehicle we ever had. A 1-year-old, at the time 2016 Chevy Traverse with around 25,000 miles on it. About 2 weeks after buying it, the air conditioning went out. No big deal. That's why I bought a new car. It's got a warranty. Except they never disclosed that it was Canadian and had zero warranty. $1,200 fix for the air conditioning. The power steering rack crapped out at like $30,000. Then the compressor went out again at $35,000. And then a multitude of powertrain issues that all should have been under warranty, but weren't. They knew I'd have never bought it if I had known it was a $28,000 as is vehicle. So they just left the detail out. Kimberly, can you help everyone understand here? Yeah.
Yes. So whenever you get a vehicle and it comes from Canada, you lose the manufacturer's warranty on it. There are things and hoops that the dealer can jump through to gain warranty back on it. But there's something called a buyer's guide, and on there it should say as is. Somewhere it needs to say as is because it came from Canada. the dealer pulled one over on them for sure. I mean, I wonder what happened with that.
Was that a new vehicle or a used vehicle?
Yeah.
It was used with 25,000 miles, but still was under the manufacturer's new car warranty if it was sold in Canada. That's such a scary realization, is because we've seen more and more used cars in the States be Canadian vehicles because of the lack of used cars that we have.
I see that all the time being in Michigan with the close proximity to Canada.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of cars on the used market. Definitely check the Carfax, because it is on there. It will show that it did come from Canada. And that's for sure. I mean, obviously it's going to tell you right there. Not to mention looking at the instrument cluster, and it's all in kilometers per hour.
Well,
miles
yeah,
per hour.
but I think that they mentioned that though about the instrument cluster in that, but it was changed. The instrument cluster was changed.
They went
to
so
miles.
far to change
they
that
did.
out.
Yeah, and
wow.
Don't forget though, this goes back to FTC buyer's guides. 2018, the big sweep across 7 states because buyer's guides weren't either accurate or not even at all. So the buyer's guide on this vehicle must have said as is. That's how it should have been. Who knows if they even had a buyer's guide in it, but that's what it should have been. FTC should have jumped all over that one, or could have.
I'm having flashbacks to when my dad and I first started YAA, like very, very, very early days when we did the car buying service. And one of the first ever customers I ever helped, man, I forget his name right now, but he was an older gentleman. He found us from YouTube, and he was up in Alaska. And this was devastating. It was so sad. He had a big van and he wanted to downsize. Great, easy, can do it. We ended up finding a Ford Fusion for him at a local used car lot, and it looked like a relatively good deal. They didn't have a Carfax, but they provided an auto check, or the auto checks. We looked at the auto checks, everything came back, it was good. He buys the vehicle. He ends up a couple weeks later running into some sort of issue with one of the headlights or something like that, so he takes it to the local Ford dealership. The Ford dealership starts peeling the onion back, per se. The car had been in a major front-end wreck. Never showed up on the auto check, and it showed up on the Carfax. The dealership didn't provide the auto check. I was naive, and my service for this gentleman didn't get the Carfax. We just looked at the auto check, thought it was okay. I ended up with him having to fight the used car lot to take the car back, and we threatened to go all the way to the Attorney General. Horror story, right? Someone buys a vehicle, no accident was previously disclosed, and man, do I remember them saying, well, it wasn't a major accident, or it didn't hurt the structure of the frame of the car, so we didn't have to disclose it. It's like, no, you got to disclose these things, because we would have never bought the car if we had known about it. You can lie by commission, or you can lie by omission. Lying by omission happens all the time. And that's why you got to dot your I's, cross your T's, really do the due diligence, because you could end up with tons of work and tons of financial headache if you end up in one of these horror story situations.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
There's
they should, yes, absolutely disclose that, because not only is there an issue mechanically if something happens, but look at the depreciation that car has suffered because of it. Once it comes out and you go down the line to resell it, and they pull the Carfax, that's, you're going to lose money right off of there just trying to resell it off of that.
There were 5 things, Zach, that I took away from all these comments, and I think there were like 87 of them at the time. There's probably more now, but what we saw the most of: selling payments. Dealerships are all trying to shove you into a payment, keeping you there by any means, like hiding keys or losing keys or whatever it is. They're trying to keep you there. Make sure it's a CPO. If it really is a CPO, there was a comment in there about, you got to get proof, people. If you're buying a certified pre-owned, make sure you get that signed inspection that says certified pre-owned on it.
And that it's a manufacturer's, right, Kimberly? And not just a dealer CPO.
Dealers,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I want a manufacturer. If I'm buying a CPO, I want manufacturer CPO, 100%, Phil. Any day over top of a dealership
but make sure,
CPO.
But folks need to check that out, right? To make sure
they sure do.
Because they kind of market it kind of looking like it's a manufacturer, but then it ends up being a dealership CPO or dealership certified or whatever they want to call it.
Exactly.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. And then the last one was just a test drive. so many people just wanted to go on a test drive.
Mhm.
And they're trying to get shoved into a vehicle that they just want a test drive, man. It's simple. I just want a test drive.
Or maybe that's the only one on the lot, right? That is
Yeah.
available.
Yeah. Payment packing. 100%.
I mean, that one is one that we see pretty frequently on some of the out the door worksheets. Here's your range of what this is going to go. It's not a range.
No,
The price
it's
is the
pretty.
price.
That's it. That is it.
Yep.
Definitely not a range.
Jeremiah reminding us that Nissan has a CPO program for non-Nissans. Isn't that strange? Yeah, I remember some of the OEMs have started to come out with these programs where they can certify other vehicles. The meaning behind being certified pre-owned is slowly but surely eroding and corroding.
Yeah.
Part of what you
Yeah.
got out of that was you had the bigger inspection done by the OEM and the extension of some form of manufacturer's warranty. Nissan can't put a warranty on a Dodge. Nissan can't put a warranty on I was about to say an Infinity. They can do an Infinity. But once you start to look at it, like that's some of the value you get out of certified pre-owned. Not any longer, because it's used as a sales tactic to help boost your confidence in what you're buying.
100%. Now, the years and years ago, Zach, since you touched on that, I was a huge proponent for Subaru was the best. Subaru CPOs all day long. Love them because they were cheaper. And you were getting a nearly new car because they would CPO them right out of loaner service. So maybe they've got 3,500 miles on them and they would CPO them. And the price was lower. That was wonderful, but that's gone. That's gone. The price is lower on nothing. Nothing.
True.
We actually have, I know I didn't cue this up for the show today, guys, but welcome to doing a show with me.
Yay!
We actually have on the YAA blog today, average monthly car payments skyrocket in 2022. The latest data from both Edmunds, Cox Automotive, Automotive News, there's actually multiple cities where renting a one-bedroom home or an apartment is cheaper than the average new car payment, which now stands at $712. Average rent for a one-bedroom home, Akron, Ohio, $640. Wichita, Kansas, $710. Lubbock, Texas, $720. Now, one thing that's in this article, the average used car payment, I think it's right down here, for last quarter was over $500 at an average 8.6% interest rate. We should, in the next couple of weeks here, have the latest data for Q2 of 2022. My best guess is we're going to see average monthly payments north of $525, which, to provide context here, year over year from Q1 of last year to Q1 of this year, we went from $414 monthly payments for used cars to $503. So my guesstimation that we're going to be at $525 is actually probably a bit of a safe bet. And I bet you interest rates are north of 9%. We've seen interest rates on new cars now over 5%. I bring this all up to say, to your point, Kimberly, about things not getting cheaper. Yeah, the data is backing that up. We're certainly seeing it. 12% of new cars bought last month have over a $1,000 monthly payment.
This is why I always say that if you get a vehicle over $800 or $700 in payment, you better be able to live in it, because I have never seen that chart before. That puts some perspective on it.
Kimberly, did you see the over advance on those too? They're the average of like 115% financed.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah, let's take a peek at that again. So
yeah, let's see that.
What Phil's mentioning here is the loan to value ratio.
Oh, wow.
You're financing 114% of the value of the vehicle.
And now just wait until the market corrects. And then your value of your used car now goes down. And now you're even worse off. And folks are going to be put in a position where their car is just not worth what they would think it would be.
And we're starting to see a little bit of that happening in the market, guys. We have the latest data from Black Book. Let's jump into that. Enough horror stories for one day. The weekly update from Black Book shows our first market decline of some significance in, I think we're up to about 2.5, 3 months. The market was down more than 1/10 of a point, 0.15% week over week. We like to, my dad and I, and I'm excited to do this with you, we like to look at the variance, right? We started this chart back at the January of 2020. Used car prices started to climb a little bit. They tanked when COVID started, the beginning of the pandemic. They skyrocketed it up after that. They tanked again a little later on in the pandemic. They skyrocketed again after that. They tanked again for a shorter period of time. They increased again, kind of modestly. They decreased again. Now they've kind of flatlined out. You can really see here how things are starting to compress and you're finding a new normal. Used car values are finally starting to find that new normal and depreciate again like they've traditionally done in the past. And it's even happening to our subcompact and compact cars, which for weeks, because of gas prices, had actually appreciated.
Yeah.
So Phil, to your point, when used car prices start to correct, maybe we're actually starting to see the beginnings of that right now.
I think so. I mean, I'm seeing it in members that I'm helping with on looking at used car dealers or deals, right? Looking at the Black Book data, it kind of looks like the Black Book data is a bit higher, but probably going on a little bit older data. But I mean, they are significantly lower than what they were earlier.
Are there any particular deals that you've seen that kind of like stand out to you as like, oh wait, this was more negotiable than I thought it would be, or wow, they've actually been cutting back on price? And part I ask that because floor plan costs, I imagine, are also starting to go up now.
Well, I think that they're lowering cost to get people in the door because I think less people are buying right now. So I'm thinking that they're lowering. Case in point with that story that I had last week with an Equinox that was advertised for $3,000-$4,000 less than what its market value was, just to get someone in the door to add on products and whatnot. But I'm seeing a lower cost of what the dealerships are actually asking, but they're holding to the pricing though, much more so than ever, and negotiability is just not there as much as it was.
I'm looking at this comment from Igor here. Used car prices are now catching up with the market on new cars and slowly correcting themselves on the used car market. They will continue to drop once dealers get rid of old, overpriced inventory. And Justice backing you up here. 100% Phil, they are not getting the sales and are lowering the price to get people in. Do you guys want to see some data that corroborates what you both just shared?
Give me some data.
I'm going to make an ad-lib out of that.
Data. Give me some data.
So every single week, Cox Automotive puts out there, let me get up to the top here, their market report. Now, what I found interesting in this week's market report is the last slide. Leading indicators. Leads so far in July are down year over year on both AutoTrader and Kelley Blue Book. Visits and leads are down for the month compared to July on both sites. Credit applications on DealerTrack are up week over week. Unique applications on a same-store basis last week, however, were down 18% year over year. Service trends on X time relative to last year were stable last week. Completed appointments last week were down 7% year over year. The big one here, guys, leads are down. And you don't even have to look that far. If I go to Auto News, I bet you we get an AutoTrader ad again. Let's see. Consistently, we've been getting AutoTrader ads. Come on, give me the big AutoTrader ad.
Come on,
24% more.
Let's get it.
No, actually, now it's this source. This is fantastic advertisement. Anyway, the point that is bad. I'll click on that after the show. The point being, we are starting to see the softening of the market. We absolutely are.
I'm anxious to see what it's going to be like in fall. The only reason is I keep thinking in the back of my head is that spring is typically in the auto dealership world a hot selling time. But it always cools down during summer when people are on vacation. This is during normal times, guys. We're not in normal times, that's for sure. So summer there's usually a lull, but as soon as the beginnings of fall come around, people are out buying cars again with fury. So I'm kind of anxious to see what that's going to look like. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything that you just showed us, though, Zach, because things are not normal anymore.
Right. And so there's,
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised, though, Kimberly, if we do see downward trend in summer. People are out, they're doing all their fun things. A little bit of an upward trend in the fall. The thing that would hold that back would be if you continue to see recession talk, if you continue to see interest rates
Yeah.
rise, which I don't see a world where that's not going to happen.
Right.
Again, leads me to believe that, and we put out a video on the YA channel, better deals are on the horizon in the sense of you're going to be able to negotiate 60, 90 days from now on used cars. New cars, you're still going to
Yes.
struggle with the exception of, Space reminding us there's actually incentives back on BMWs. That's great. That's good to hear.
Awesome. That's good.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
hope we see more of that come fall, but
I mean, I think we will.
supply-
I mean, Stellantis, you see that they've got rebates all over on all their products except for the Grand Cherokee, but that just got released.
There was actually a slide in the Cox update, and I'll pull it back up so that we can take a peek as a group because I found it fascinating. One of the things that's driving up those monthly payments are increased interest rates. Now,
interest
one of the
rates,
things
yeah.
that Cox is actually showing here, let me pull it up so we can peek at it. Was it this slide? Consumer sentiment? No, it's this slide. 0% financing is actually up from May.
Mhm.
Look at that. 9.8% of new cars are actually on 0% financing right now. That's the latest data from Cox Automotive. That was mind-boggling to me that you can actually still get new cars on subvented rates that low. I don't understand why the OEMs feel that they need to do that because of the lack of demand, but we're seeing
Right.
a rise again, even in an increasing interest rate environment of 0% financing. That'll
Yeah.
keep people in the market, that's for sure.
It will, and those are on, from what I've been seeing, on like 36 or 48-month terms. So if you're going to long term, I haven't seen one recently for the longer terms.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would be shocked if somebody came out with 0 by 72. Shocked. I used to tell salespeople all the time, I would get so angry with them and say, "You're not selling an interest rate, you're selling a car." Okay, so go over the car, sell the car, not the interest rate. Well, you know what? Now in today's world, I want the interest rate. I do. I sell me an interest rate and I'll come look at your car for sure.
Well, they'll be able to sell the interest rate because most of your salespeople out there really don't know anything about the car anyway. So it doesn't.
That's right. Especially after seeing all these comments in Jalopnik.
Yeah, exactly.
Go take a peek at that article. Super interesting stuff. Phil, Kimberly, thank you guys for joining me. Happy Wednesday.
Thank
to
you.
both of
Happy Wednesday.
I'll be back tomorrow with Dad. Kind of weird to call him Dad in front of you guys. Pops feels more appropriate. I'll be back tomorrow with Pops. We'll have a good show tomorrow. Thank you both for being here. Have a good rest of your day, okay?
You too.
Yeah,
Awesome.
you too. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you
Bye.
tomorrow.
Bye, guys.